kids is hard, and you might assume that it's even harder when life has thrown some additional challenges your way.
Well, our next guest says that disabled people are in many ways uniquely suited and skilled at parenthood, and she's here to tell us much more about that. Please welcome to the show the author of Unfit Parent, a disabled mother challenges an inaccessible world, Jessica Slice. Welcome to the show. What a great title, and congratulations on the book, for starters. It is full of thoughtful insights and really, really important information. We're gonna get to all of that in a second, but first, tell us a little bit about your story and your journey to becoming a parent.
Of course. So I have this kind of like before and after story. I was not disabled and I was extremely active. And then in the course of one day when I was 28, I got heat exhaustion and that triggered a neurological condition. And so I went from running 7 miles one day to the next day being stuck almost entirely in bed or in my wheelchair. And I'm 42 now, so it's been about 14 years.
Wow.
And then when I was 34, my then boyfriend, now husband, and I decided to be foster parents. We had an extra bedroom and felt like we could provide that for a kid who needed it. And then we unexpectedly were called about a newborn. And so we started fostering her and adopted her about 18 months later. And then last year, someone we love very much was a surrogate for us, and we had our second baby about a year ago.
Wow.
Well, your family is gorgeous, but I'm curious, did your adult onset disability make you question your desire to become a parent?
You know, you would think so, but for me, I was such a perfectionist and so hard on myself that before I was disabled, I didn't want to be a parent because I thought I would treat my kids the way I treated myself. And I thought I wouldn't be a good mom for that reason. And then when I became disabled, I really, reckoning with how fragile my body is and how unpredictable life is, I actually found my way to liking myself. And so it was actually becoming disabled that made me think I was good enough to be a mom.
Wow. That's profound. So this book gives readers a clear portrayal of what life is like as a disabled parent. What are some of the things that you deal with every day that people probably aren't even aware of?
So before I used a wheelchair, I just thought I saw ramps everywhere and buttons to get indoors, but they actually aren't that many in that many places, and there's so many spaces I need to go that don't have elevators. You know, I can't go to most of the birthday parties my oldest kid goes to. I haven't been able to enter a lot of her school buildings. You know, the whole world is just this like obstacle course, and she's so aware of all the places I cannot go, and that's something I really wasn't aware of. And then I think the other is this sort of being a spectacle, that when I'm out in the world with my kids, I can see people looking at us. You know, the baby will be on my lap and my daughter walking next to me, and I can just tell that people are like, what's going on there?
Yeah, I can imagine, I can imagine. Well, disabled parents also face significant discrimination when trying to grow their family. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of fertility doctors are hesitant to treat disabled people. Actually, a lot of OBGYN offices aren't accessible. Disabled people, depending on their educational setting, don't receive the amount of sex ed. So the discrimination starts really, really early. And sometimes disabled people are counseled against having babies that share their disability if it's genetic, which I think is a really tricky thing to advise someone to say, having another person with your life is not a good idea.
No kidding. No kidding. I was so surprised to read that in your book. And something else that people might find surprising is that disabled parents are far more likely to lose custody in the child welfare system.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Oh my gosh, so many disabled parents lose custody of their kids. I didn't interview anyone for my book who had not been visited by Child Protective Services.
Not anyone?
No, it's so common. One mom I spoke to, when she was in the hospital after giving birth, she had trouble nursing and started crying, and she was blind. And the nurse called CPS, and they came and questioned her capacity to parent because she was crying, not being able to breastfeed. But anyone who has fed their baby from their chest knows that that's very difficult from the beginning, and crying is, I think, just par for the course.
Yes.
That's about as normal as it gets. If you're not crying, something's up.
Yeah.
It is that hard. Unbelievable story.
Yeah.
I think raising kids, we know it's not easy. All of us can attest to. And some people might assume then that the demands of modern parenting would be even harder for those who have challenges. But in fact, your book is dissecting that very argument. Tell us more.
So I think, or at least for me, that disability has taught me a lot of the same skills that parenthood requires, and I think that's the case for a lot of disabled parents. You know, it's taught me to kind of be okay with the fact that a lot of days are hard, a lot of days are unpredictable, and when things are hard, it's not because I'm not good enough or not doing things well enough or not optimizing or not trying hard enough. It's because of systems, it's because life involves suffering and life involves unfairness, and I think for a lot of disabled parents, we practice those skills, and so when it comes to parenting, we're kind of ready for all that kids bring into it. But I also think that disability and not being disabled, the line between them is so much fuzzier than any of us think, that every single person will become disabled if they don't die suddenly and tragically, that we all have bodies that eventually fail, and we like to pretend that we're so far away from that fragility and that mortality, but it's actually the unpredictability is the thing that we all share.
Such a good point. It's such a good point. Yeah. I'm curious, how has disability culture shaped your view of parenting?
I think disability culture has this really beautiful ability to tell the truth about what's hard and then to come together to try to ease the suffering of other people. It's this sense that we don't need to do everything on our own, and it's this real sense of community. And it has totally changed my parenting. When I encounter my own limits, I'm far less likely to blame myself for them and just far more likely to ask for help, because that's what it is to be a person.
And that's a lesson so many of us could take, so many moms could take. So what changes would you like to see to make life for disabled people easier and also more inclusive?
So as I mentioned, you know, there are so few places that are accessible, or so much fewer than you would think. And people often say, well, it's historic. You know, this building's been grandfathered in because it's historic. But I think about how disabled people have been treated throughout history. And, you know, up until 1974 in the US, disabled people could be arrested for going out in public because of the ugly laws, that if I was in a wheelchair in public, I could be arrested.
1974?
Yeah, and then until the late 90s, most people with my disability were institutionalized and we were hidden from view. And so when people say it's historic, I think, okay, but let's think about what history was like. And instead of grandfathering it in, we should say, let's create a new way of treating disabled people and not rely on these tired tropes. And it feels like part of the lineage of disabled isolation is being excluded from buildings. So I would love to change that.
You're doing that by being here with us today. So Jessica, thank you. And congrats on the book.
Thank you.
An amazing feat. Thank you. Thank you. Let's take a quick break, everybody. We're back after this.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.